Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are diving deep, and I mean really deep, into the cold corporate machinery behind global football. We're looking at a system that ruthlessly prioritizes a massive $50 billion revenue stream over the actual sport itself. And to truly understand how this machine operates, we're going to start our autopsy by looking at the devastating final World Cup moments of a 41-year-old legend.
Let's set the scene, right at the literal scene of the crime, Dallas, Texas. It is a sweltering 40 degrees Celsius, and Cristiano Ronaldo's 2026 World Cup run has just come to a crashing halt. But if we look closely at the sources we're examining today, they suggest he wasn't just beaten by a better team on the day. No, the allegations point to something much colder. He was left completely stranded by a system that simply crumbled around him.
Section 1. The scene of the crime. Tactical collapse. So let's actually track this tactical collapse, because it paints a pretty stark picture. Right around the 40th minute, Nuno Mendes hits the crossbar. Okay, they're pushing. But then, just 13 minutes later, in the 53rd minute, Mendes leaves the pitch in tears with an injury. And here's the crazy part. Without him, Portugal essentially just retreated deep into their own half. They left Ronaldo entirely isolated up front. He was literally just waiting there for service that was never ever going to arrive, right up until Mikel Merino scored the fatal goal for Spain in the 90th minute.
But that breakdown actually started way before they even stepped onto the pitch. The sources point us to a very specific phrase uttered by teammate João Neves, which really seems to be the spark that fractured their locker room. By referring to the man who quite literally delivered the country its first major trophies as just here to help, just like all the rest, well, those internal divisions were suddenly laid bare for everyone to see. And those divisions, they manifested in some truly shocking ways. 1998 World Cup winner Yuri Georgiev actually went on live radio and alleged a literal boycott. Yeah, a boycott. He claimed it was incredibly obvious that the players were actively refusing to pass the ball or create any chances for their captain.
Section 2. Autopsy of a Golden Cage. Manager paralysis.
Now, think about what happened just hours after those tears in Dallas. The Portuguese media immediately sharpened their knives. As you can read from this incredibly devastating editorial line, they essentially weaponized his own legendary records against him. They claimed his ego had become toxic to the team. But, and this is absolutely crucial, the investigative reports we're looking at suggest this whole media narrative was actually a massive misdirection.
Instead, journalists shift the blame directly onto the manager, Roberto Martinez. The reports allege that Martinez's utter paralysis created this sort of golden cage. He was apparently terrified to substitute Ronaldo, only doing it once in the entire tournament during the 81st minute against Croatia. And by making the player this untouchable target, it bred massive resentment within the squad. Now contrast that dynamic with manager Jorge Jesus, who handled Ronaldo absolutely seamlessly over at Al Nassr, stating they never once clashed over playing time.
In fact, Jorge Jesus actually benched Ronaldo 16 times in a single season with absolutely zero drama. None. He pointed out that the 41-year-old was still incredibly fit, running 8 kilometers a match and topping 25 kilometers per hour. So the issue in Dallas wasn't about a player's physical decline, right? It was about a manager who was completely paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of managing a global icon.
So, as we zoom out from the visceral, sweaty reality of the pitch and look up towards those sterile VIP boxes, a much broader question starts to emerge. Did they just fail him tactically, or was this just business? Why was a legend's narrative allowed to be shredded so publicly? To truly understand that, we need to look at the money.
Section 3. The $50 billion motive. Business of football. $50 billion. That massive number represents the global football entertainment industry. You see, at this level, football isn't just a sport anymore. It is a meticulously protected business model. The sources outline exactly why FIFA prioritizes this immense $50 billion revenue stream above literally everything else. They absolutely need it to maintain their global monopoly, to fund these massive, endless tournament expansions, and, of course, to appease their corporate partners. And to keep that cash flowing, they require highly marketable, totally controversy-free storylines.
Because of this, the machine strictly evaluates personalities. The institutional architecture naturally protects compliant brand ambassadors. Take Lionel Messi, for example, often framed as the quiet, controversy-free good boy whose recent move to Inter Miami perfectly aligned with FIFA's aggressive push into U.S. growth markets. On the flip side, the system routinely penalizes unpredictable rebels like Ronaldo, guys who question officials, challenge authority, and basically rock the corporate boat.
Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter literally said the quiet part out loud back in 2013.
He publicly mocked Ronaldo's behavior while explicitly praising Messi as a good boy. Now, the sources we're looking at don't see this as just a funny slip of the tongue. They point to this as perfect, undeniable proof of a systemic institutional bias that clearly prefers a very specific, highly marketable type of personality.
Section 4. Protecting the profitable products, the brand bias. And when that brand is threatened, well, the rules start to bend. Just look at the Egypt versus Argentina VAR controversy. In the 63rd minute, Egypt goes up 2-0. But then, VAR cancels the goal for a minor shoulder graze that happened 40 yards away from the play. A World Cup referee even went on record stating this decision completely violated FIFA Law 12. So why did it happen? Well, sources suggest it was an effort to protect Fox Sports' billions invested in the Messi farewell story broadcast product, all while political handshakes were literally taking place right up there in the VIP boxes.
For the sponsors, it really just comes down to basic math. Adidas has been a FIFA partner since 1970, and they sponsor the Argentina kid, generating millions in sales. Puma sponsors Egypt. So this superstar effect on referees, it's not just about getting starstruck by fame. It's the cold reality that if a Puma-sponsored underdog eliminates an Adidas-sponsored giant, millions in institutional revenue just vanishes into thin air. That is why this matters. The integrity of the game is essentially compromised to protect the wider financial ecosystem.
And this corporate machinery doesn't just operate at the international level, it dictates club football too. Look over at the Premier League, where Manchester City is currently facing 115 charges for financial crimes. This all stems from the massive Football Leaks document hack by Der Spiegel back in 2018.
These charges are incredibly severe. We're talking about secret dual contracts where former manager Roberto Mancini was allegedly paid £1.75 million via a shell company in Mauritius, plus disguised funding pumped in and labeled as Abu Dhabi sponsorships. But here is the Premier League's ultimate dilemma. They absolutely have to punish City for this severe market manipulation, right? But doing so could cost the league its most lucrative TV deal assets, megastars like Erling Haaland and Pep Guardiola, who are worth billions. The enforcers are heavily reliant on the very revenue generated by the rule breakers.
Section 5. The cost of rebellion. Punishing defiance.
The bottom line here is that whether you are a mega club or a legendary player, defying this establishment rarely ends well. Take Diego Maradona. He waged a very public, very personal war against FIFA, calling their leadership corrupt dictators, and under immense pressure from the establishment in 2010, he lashed out, insulting a 20-year-old Thomas Muller as just a ball boy. Well, when Muller scored in the 3rd minute to humiliate Argentina 4-0, the system definitely did not step in to protect Maradona. He was sacked exactly 24 days later. The rebels, they're just left to the wolves. And this ruthless extraction of value extends way beyond individuals. It affects entire continents. The sources point to a phenomenon called African sporting colonization. It's a systemic issue where a deliberate lack of domestic investment allows wealthy European nations to easily exploit local African athletic talent purely for commercial gain. It really is the perfect summary of this business-first model. Extract the best possible talent, and protect those highly profitable Global North brands at absolutely all costs.
So, based on the isolated tiers in Dallas, the secret shell companies in Mauritius, and the highly questionable VAR calls made while executives are shaking hands in VIP boxes, we are left with one unavoidable, rather unsettling question. If this global machinery bends the rules to prioritize a $50 billion revenue stream over actual fair play, who really controls the beautiful game? Are we even watching a sport anymore, or just a heavily protected business? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I'll leave you to ponder that one.